Hey North Coast, Chris Hilken here, coming to you from my house in Bonsall, California. It's the Monday after Thanksgiving, and we're talking about the idea of hope, which we talked about this weekend in the sermon. If you haven't had a chance to go check that out, as we kind of begin this Advent season, Advent, this word meaning the arrival or the coming, as we as Christians and as the world eagerly expects Jesus to show up. Now, again, the story is thousands of years old at the point, but we still want to renew in our hearts that hope-filled excitement from that time of when God was going to become man and save the people from their sins. I think a great way to see the idea of hope play itself out, and maybe a little bit of a distinguishing factor when we say the word hope. If you have your Bibles, we're going to be in the book of Daniel chapter 3 today. Daniel chapter 3. Maybe if you finish a message like that, you might be thinking, well, then that means in all my trials and tribulations, because my hope is ultimately found in Jesus, I just shouldn't ever be concerned about anything, or there should be no stress in my life ever. Like, am I still allowed to have different concerns about my life? Like, what's the line between those two things? I think the book of Daniel does a great job of showing us what it means to have an eternal supreme confidence, but still living in our broken everyday world. In the book of Daniel, the Jews have been held captive by this kingdom under Nebuchadnezzar. And Nebuchadnezzar is this kind of tyrannical king, and he sets up the statue to himself that when they play this musical accompaniment, that everyone in the kingdom is supposed to fall down on their face and worship Nebuchadnezzar, this graven image of Nebuchadnezzar. And if anyone doesn't, they're going to be thrown into a fiery furnace, a furnace that burns so hot that even people who are throwing other people into the fiery furnace will be consumed by its heat. So it's not a good prospect. You don't want to be found as one of these guys not bowing to the statue. And yet there's three guys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And they essentially say, we know what it means to bow to a graven image. We know what it means to worship other gods. And because of what Yahweh, our God, has done for us, the God of this book has done, we're not going to bow to anything but him. So the music plays, the interlude comes in, bam, 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 bam. Someone's graduating, bam, 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 bam. And then in the middle of all of that, these three guys and the whole kingdom down on their faces, they stand tall. Well, this upsets Nebuchadnezzar's advisors, who eventually tell Nebuchadnezzar. And here's what it says. Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king. Nebuchadnezzar said, is it true that you three, that you serve gods or you didn't serve the gods or worship the image of gold that I set up? Now, when you hear this music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. I'm going to give you one more chance. But if you do not worship it, you'll be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand? A little bit of foreshadowing. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, "Oh, Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. For," check out the hope here, "if we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it, and he will rescue us from your hand, O king. But even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." I love it. If you don't know how the story finishes out, they don't bow to the graven image. Nebuchadnezzar has them thrown to the fiery furnace. Nothing happens to them. They're just kind of standing and walking around in the furnace. And then when they look in, they realize there's a fourth person in the furnace that they didn't throw in there. And it's an angel of the Lord that has come to rescue them. They walk out unscathed. And then whoever put the institutions in to kill other people are the ones who were actually thrown in the furnace after that. It's kind of a crazy story. If you have VeggieTales, Rack, Shack, and Benny, the chocolate factory, the chocolate bunny factory, it's a great one for the kids. But it tells the same story. Anyway, but don't you love the hope there? It's kind of this duality of hope. On one hand, I know that God can rescue me from this present disaster. I'm hopeful of it. But even if he doesn't, I know that God is good and will return all things to himself, that he is the great judge and the great king and the great forgiver and the great deliverer, and he will ultimately rescue us from that. So if you're living life and you're waiting for a cancer diagnosis or you're waiting for results on a test or whatever it might be that might be negative, it is completely okay to say, I hope that even my current circumstances, even my flesh and my bones and my body is taken care of. I hope I get the job. But it's that our ultimate confidence is found in something different. You see, what they said is, I hope this turns out the way that I want it to, but even if it doesn't, my supreme confidence is ultimately found in a kingdom that is not here yet, God's kingdom forever with him. That should be our hope today and for the rest of our lives. We'll see you tomorrow.